Hey all, Taves here, taking a look today at what we know so far about Paralives. So if you don't know about Paralives yet, this is the place to kind of get up to speed with everything about the game. So yeah, tons of hype about this in various different communities. I think this is a big kind of thing for people that like House Flipper and people that like Sims and people that like various different games. It kind of breaks down the barriers that a lot of those games have. So I thought it'd be a good idea to share it with you guys. See what you think, get your reactions. It's definitely a game we're going to be covering on the channel whenever it comes out. Okay, so they've been teasing out since last year, I think, various different of these very short little videos. We're going to take a look through these and sort of basically I put a little montage together of all these different features that they show in these videos. So we're going to kind of stop and start, and they start off fairly simple. Although definitely game breaking, for House Flipper and for Sims straight away. There's some of the things you see in here. So let's we'll play these through and then we'll kind of talk through the various different things we see. So in this first one, we're seeing, this is a big thing. Like the fact that you can resize and reposition windows, and obviously you've got a garden out in the back there. Same with curtains, and this we see all the way through the game. So this is now the second little video. So this is them creating their own plot. So again, some majorly big deal things going on here. So this isn't out of scope of The Sims, but being able to build your own plot, 4 walls, create a wall, and then suddenly the fact that we can curve the walls is crazy nuts. So, but it doesn't go as far. It doesn't end there. Change the floor height. Get some steps. Obviously, we're not seeing the UI and things, so there's various different things that are not here. But angled walls. The fact that you can kind of create such sort of dynamic shapes is crazy. Like we haven't seen anything like this before. Okay, so this is the next one. Creating and editing lots. So fairly simple little video. This one, but. Again, different, groundbreaking. We've never seen anything like this before in any other games. The first time we get sound in one of these videos as well. So you can see dynamic plots being drawn out here. What they've said is that there'll be pre-made slots and there'll be, this ability to be able to create your own. So we see one great big massive plot being drawn out here. And interesting, it seems to dynamically decide what the address is. This is obviously Long Street and this is Pear Street, but why it's decided that this is a Long Street address and not a Pear Street address, I don't know. Obviously everything we're seeing here is work in progress. This I think was where it started to get the first point at which it started to get like, okay, this is a big deal. This is really a big deal. So the title of this video is Resize, Stack and Flip Objects, and the stuff you're going to see in this video, there's some fairly obvious stuff, but there's also some really interesting stuff. So if you look here, the dynamic, so that in that last video, obviously we saw curved walls. Well, the problems that you get when we do curved walls are things like, okay, so how do you get objects to interact with a curved wall? So for example, this skirting, if you look very closely, hopefully you can see this in the video, but there are numerous individual, very, very small pieces of skirting wrapping round that curve. So it's not just a flat wall to look at here. There's the fact that this skirting doesn't seem to have a problem moulding around it. Obviously, again, pinch of salt. This is a development build, but also look at the things like the shadows. We see this later on again, but the shadow, the quality of that light coming through that wall is really good. But yeah, so this is where we start to see, okay, it's not just the fact that you can reshape and resize windows. We've suddenly objects have this ability to be dynamic. So we see, the user here switching the desk around, flipping it from left to right. So draws on one. So this is one object and it's dynamic. You see the nodes again, so we can stretch this and shape it. We see some colour variations here. We see what looks like a duplicate button. So again, no UI, but this is kind of magicked in this object. Interestingly as well, so this object at the moment, these two objects, keep an eye on how these two objects behave. So this object has been placed as a lamp, and it's been placed on top of this desk. This one appears to have snapped to the wall. So it looks like a little shelf unit, like a box shelf. Again, we see that duplication method happening. And that time, it's not placed on the wall, so it's not snapped on the wall anymore. Now it's being placed on the desk, so being actually completely repurposed as something else. There, that same object is being used. That is being used as a shelf. Here, it's used as being used as a riser. So effectively, these developers are just thinking, well, let's just give these people objects and let them turn it into whatever they want. So yeah, if you think about it, you can make that really long and thin. You can make that, in theory, you could make that whole thing, I guess, into like a table or a desk. And it's just 4 bits of wood. Massively game changing stuff. Again, this is like goes from a desk a lamp on the desk to being a standing lamp just by stretching. We've got no idea at this stage if there's any kind of limitations and stuff. I guess there's probably a point at which you can't rescale everything. We can also see here, there's no snapping of those rotations. That's a completely flexible rotation there. All of these things seem to have some colour variation. We see these basic... So it does actually look like when they're first placed down, they are snapping. So I know some of the dev notes say, or some of the things I've read say that there is an option to snap objects, but there's an option to free place as well. Okay, so next videos. Again, this is a continuation really of the same thing, but there's some interesting new stuff here. So this is a bed. You see this bed has its nodes. So this is a node on the top and a node on the side. Colour variation, switching and duplication. And so simple, really simple, elegant UI. But that's quite interesting there. So we didn't see this before. In this variation, that desk basically just resizes. This part just gets bigger. The difference we see in the bed, if I can just jump back to that part. Okay, so the difference we see in the bed is that as we stretch, so it starts off with 2 pillows, but as we stretch the bed, it becomes 3 pillows because you wouldn't want just 2 pillows floating in the middle. So that is super clever. That is dynamically, it's a point at which it snaps to be a different object, a variation of the same object, but understanding that at a point, it needs to change, it needs to be dynamic. So again, it goes down to 1. As you make it thinner, it goes down to 1 pillow. Then we see what happens when you what happens if you rise a bed. So we're duplicating it for a second here to get a second one. And as you rise it, that is so cool. This now has railings appear around it and a ladder just by pulling on that node to make it taller. Switch the variant there, and one thing it doesn't do is move that railing over, but again, a work in progress, so we shall see. So carrying on, flick that ladder from one side to the other. This is interesting as well. So never at any point, so we're moving this bed on the right, this single bed, never at any point does there seem to be an issue about it saying, no, you can't put that down inside that bed. So it looks like these are 2 objects clipping together. If you see actually that piece of metal there passes right into that other post. So if they do this, and they do allow us to do this is something that I've been saying constantly in House Flipper, the ability to be able to overlap things really opens up what you can do with those objects. So in this case, we've created a bunk bed just from one object. Okay, next clip. So this was a simple clip. They've been doing these little festive videos. Not an enormous amount in this, but it's a suggestion. And this is confirmed in some of the later details that were revealed after this video. Is that there will be seasons. So the things to note, really, obviously there's some objects and stuff in here, some cool looking things. Nothing that's massively revolutionary. What's different, I think, is that actually we see autumn leaves on the trees, and as I play the video, obviously there's the camera is animating, But these things are all animating. They're all moving around in the wind. We don't see that in House Flipper. We don't see that in The Sims. So this is, again, fairly simple. We've seen this before, but this is quite funny little, variations of the same thing. Flipping it around. Again, that things have their own multi-purposes. Simple little one here in the graveyard. So again, we see weather now. So not just wind. We're seeing the night time. We're seeing lightning. We're seeing thunder. We're seeing being able to put dynamic text on things. So you see that this has been written onto this object, so onto this gravestone, and then we've got two different types of text there. So there's this header text and then the body text. It'd be interesting to know if it scales that text as it gets longer. So just so many cool things here. Again, rain. Again, this was like, okay, this was a big deal. This video was a massive big step forward. So imagine doing creating a kitchen, creating a kitchen in The Sims, or creating a kitchen in House Flipper or any other game, and can you do this? So takes out the oven, puts a cupboard in place. Again, we've seen a lot of this stuff, but we're now seeing, okay, so these are variants. These are, again, the same object, variants of this drawer. Okay, how many, what do you want the drawer front to look like? Do you want it to be a multi-drawer, or do you want it to be a single drawer with a cupboard, or just a cupboard? And presumably there'll be more than that as well. But again, so really simple, elegant UI. I can switch the knobs to whatever I want. And really, you think about it, if you're doing something like that, you can change all the color variations. You can change the various different colors of the tops. You can add, and this was the first time we saw this as well. So color wheel. So this was a big deal when I saw this. It was like, oh my God, how many times have we cried out for this in House Flipper? So hex colors, color wheels, saturation levels, what look like texture variants here. So I'm like completely free to do whatever I want. I can copy and paste the hex color, make sure that whenever I create anything else, I'm using that. And then there's some different textures that I can put on top of the worktop here. And presumably the same would apply to the cupboard sides, etc. So if you think about this in terms of UI, like you don't need to have hundreds of cupboards all in the UI. You just put one. So that is the same, that is the same, that is the same. That's potentially the same, but just scaled in the vertical, although that's missing a worktop there. So that was potentially a different variant. That one's quite interesting. Belfast Sink kind of embedded in there. That's something very cool. Lighting, so color lighting, changing the lighting. You can see that lighting is affecting the room as well. It's been picked up over here. Color variants we're seeing in the room. Super cool stuff. As we move around this room, so again, we see fairly complex coving. The one thing that the skirted boards, the one thing I did notice here, which is a little bit of a concern, is again that exterior corner. So we see this problem currently on House Flipper, but the external corner of that coving is missing. So whereas it should come out, it's in. So that piece and that piece have not come out to a nice corner, which was how you'd actually do it in real life. But we shall forgive them for that for now. It does actually look like it's all right up there. It's difficult to tell. So interesting. Just bits of clutter and stuff. So we've got books and candle lights and artwork on the wall. We've got food here. We haven't seen them yet, but we'll see them later in the video. That there are characters. There are parafolk is what they're calling them. Again, seeing the resizing. We've got some music playing here. So it isn't just it's a simulator game. Next one we saw was hair color. So right, okay, confirmed. People confirmed, presumably. At the moment, when we're seeing this in this video, it's obviously it's a mannequin head on a pole floating in the world. But just the flexibilities of this, like not just a flat single color. You can have You can have roots, and you can have tips, and you can have the main body of the hair, and again, the colour wheel flexibility. So your options are massive in this. This was then okay. Now this is where this is a big deal. This game is going to be a big deal. It's not just going to be that they're that this is one of those sorts of games you follow for a while and you wonder if they're ever going to get it made. This was the first point I was like, okay, this is definitely happening in this game. Look at this. So this is Maggie's loft is what they called this. So look at the clutter. Look at all the stuff. Look at the object. Look at the dust particles, plants and things. So much in this one that's just incredible. Got all the objects that we've got, all these books. Obviously there's a repetition and things there, but it looks so dynamic and so full. Let's just pause it in this shot for a second. So again, lighting. I mean, this is presumably a building that's been created in game. Maybe. I mean, if it is, then this whole, this, what would you call that? This angled window is incredible. Never seen anything like that. And the bookshelves and the clutter and the staircase and the fact that this is all supported with these what are like steel beams. And then interesting, if you watch down in this corner, down in this right corner, so we haven't yet seen the characters. This is before we see a character, but we have a silhouette of a character, what looks like they're drinking some tea. Again, look at this, like wind is blowing into the house and animating the curtains. Okay, so then this is the most recent one. This is the most recent video. We look like we're up close in here. Things have sharpened up quite a lot more from the previous images. It looks a little bit crisper. I'm not sure if this is better, but we shall see in a minute what we're going to get revealed. So just let me play this on. So this is the first introduction of our character. I'll let this one play through and then I'll go back. Okay, I think we've seen most of this already, but let's just scroll back a second. So a few things that I noticed in there which were interesting, which are very simple, little subtle thing here, but as this video starts, just jump ahead. Right, so we see, I mean, obviously we're seeing all of this stuff in a lot closer detail here. But the thing that interests me is this. So we just pause it there. So on the left hand side here, this is suggesting to me, well, we've got some play buttons. I mean, this could suggest this is just a little movie in game, but the fact that we have two characters here, what look to me to be two avatars, one of which appears to be a cat. So is that suggesting we can be the cat? To me, that kind of is, that we can either that we're in a camera mode, which could be the case, that we're in Maggie's camera, although it still feels like the camera is separate. But this is looking to me like we can customize the customize the animal so we can switch between Maggie and the cat. Yeah, so super hyped for this one, guys. I'll be keeping you up to date. I will be following very closely, and as soon as there is something to put out on the channel, I will do so. I'll put links for this in the description for any of the videos and their website and their Patreon, all that sort of stuff. And it is wish list on Steam at the moment. That's what they're requesting of people. So yeah, my name is Toves, and as ever, thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.